Hey, Vibrant. What's up? It's good to see you. Welcome, welcome. You like my donkey shirt? How about this, huh? Yeah. Not bad, huh? My wife looks at me this morning and she's like, "You are not." And I'm like, "Oh, yes, I am. I very much am." So, hey, welcome. So glad you're here. If we've not yet had a chance to meet, my name is Drew. I'm one of the pastors, and it's a great day for a great day. I'm so glad that you decided to join us for church today. And there's such a sweet spirit about our church right now. I love it. Every time we gather, it is filling, it's challenging, it's life-giving. And so I want you to know that as you are a part of this, you help make all of this like a sweet, sweet gathering together. So thank you for being here. Speaking of, I got a gift this past week that I had to share with you. We've got some talented folks in our church family. Do you know this? We've got some talented folks. Check out this picture that was shared with me this week. Isn't that great? I love it. I feel like this donkey is like staring into my soul being like, "Get off your donkey. Are you off me yet?" So talented. So I love the way that our church family loves one another and we engage. And even just this past week, we got our pastoral staff together for a staff retreat. And I don't know if you've ever been a part of any work retreats before, but typically they can be a little boring. We like to have a lot of fun. So we had a lot of fun at our staff retreat, but we also shared a 5-year vision for where our church is headed. And of course, we have it all in pencil, just in case God changes his mind. But I'll tell you, the excitement and the energy coming out of that retreat, friends, our best days are still ahead. Amen? It's really, really exciting. So I'm so glad that you're a part of it. Hey, we are in this donkey series. We're looking at tales of different donkeys in the scriptures. And what we're really trying to motivate or move us towards is action. Because a faith without works, James says, is dead. It's flatlined. We can't have an active faith in the Lord and have it not a part of our hands and feet. Those churches that actively lean into their faith without any works, that's called spiritual bloating. And I never want that to be said of us, that we're so spiritually bloated that we don't actually practice our faith, that it's not worked out through our hands and through our feet. I don't know how practically you are with exercise, but on a practical level, how y'all doing with exercise? For me, I feel like it depends on the day of the week, right? Just full disclosure, I've got a love-hate relationship when it comes to exercise. I feel like I'm much better suited to eat donuts than I am to work out. Anybody else in the room? Just feels natural for me, okay? One of my prayers in heaven is that donuts in heaven would have the same caloric intake as celery on earth, right? I think I'm burning calories as I'm eating this baked good. That would be awesome. I have a love-hate relationship with exercise. I feel like the more articles that I read, the more podcasts that I listen to about exercise, the more I'm confused. I feel like there's always new science coming out about exercise, and it's we need to value weight training over cardio. Weight training. Or it's hey, stop running. Running's bad for your knees. Only walk. And I'm cool with that one. That's a good one. Or one I read, it's stop walking and only swim. And I'm I don't know how you do that. That just seems weird. Another trend that's happening right now on our staff here at Vibrant is the standing desk. Do you know what I'm talking about? Rather than the sitting desk. And I'm I really like sitting. I don't want to stand. I'm just kind of whiny about it, you know? But it doesn't matter how many articles you read. Doesn't matter how many podcasts you listen to. When it comes to exercise, I think our friends at Nike were probably right. We need to, just do it. You just need to do it. We know it's important. We know it's valuable. When it comes to exercise, it's less talk and more do. And I think that's how we can sometimes reconcile our faith here is faith, we can get so talky about it, but we don't actually seek to practice it out or move it out in our life. And friend, our faith in Jesus, our faith in the Lord, like it was not meant to be hidden. It was meant to be active in our lives. It was meant to hit our hands and feet. And when we feed on the word without actually allowing it to come out through our lives, our faith without works, as I mentioned earlier, is dead. And we need to combat the tendency towards spiritual bloatedness and actually practice our faith. So that's where we're going today, if that's okay. I've titled the message today, Go, Donkey, Go. Now, I don't know if any of you have read that children's book, Go, Dog, Go. It's all about a dog, going, right? So I totally just ripped that off today. So go, donkey, go. And here's where I'm going with the message today. I'm just gonna tell you this all up front. I'm gonna give you a challenge really, really practically to serve someone else this week. We're kicking off today what we call Serve Week, and we've had folks giving all kinds of donations and signing up for projects. And let me be clear. I know y'all have crazy schedules. I know your calendars are filled up. And so what I want to do is I want to get in the middle of your calendar here, and I want to give you a really, really practical way with which we can live out our faith today. So that's where we're going. Is that okay? Everybody say yes, Drew. Cool. All right, let's go there. If you got a Bible or a Bible app, open those up. We're going to be in Luke chapter 10. Luke chapter 10 is where we're at. I hear like 2 Bibles turning right now. If we got Bibles, let's turn there. Bible apps are great too. You can open those up. If you didn't bring a Bible, I'll throw it up on the screen here for you as well. No big deal. Luke chapter 10, Jesus is executing his ministry, practicing his ministry, and out of this ministry, he begins this conversation with some of the religious elite of the day. And in Luke chapter 10, verse 21, Jesus says this. At that time, Jesus, full of joy through the Holy Spirit, said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from, the wise and the learned, and revealed them to little children. What does that mean? Jesus is teaching us what it means to be a Christian. What is asked of us, what is necessitated for us. And he said, for those that are listening, these things have been hidden from the wise and the learned, and they have become so simple, like as it is for little children. And so let me be really, really clear at the top. This message today is not complex. It's not gonna be difficult to understand. You're not gonna walk out of here scratching your head and go, what the heck was Drew talking about today? Like, that's not gonna be today, okay? The message today is so simple. Like, if you feel like you're in that camp of the wise and the learned, let's just take those lenses off today and let's approach this text with a faith like a child. Like when Jesus asks us to do something, that we don't overthink it, we just do it. So this is the story that Jesus tells with that context of that there are things really, really simple that the wise and the learned are missing and that little children are getting. So here's the story that he tells. Skipped ahead to verse, verse 25, okay? Now, before we dive in, I'm sure you have heard this story before. Like, even if you're not a church person, you've probably heard this story of the Good Samaritan, okay? So I want you to approach this with fresh eyes today, like you've never heard it before, all right? And let's approach it as Jesus is sharing it in the context in that day. So on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Everybody say, uh-oh. Now, whenever you see in the scriptures when someone tries to test Jesus, it never goes well for the other person, all right? Jesus is never surprised by our actions or even our motivations, okay? So the expert in the law approaches Jesus and he says, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" It seems like a great question, right? Like, I think I would ask that maybe at some point. Like, that's a great question. And then listen to the question with which Jesus responds with. He says, "Well, what is written in the law?" Jesus says, "How do you read it?" Now, if you're unfamiliar with the law, back then, they didn't have the New Testament, okay? So what they had was Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. All those first 5 books of the Old Testament with the 10 Commandments and the early law, like that's what they had, and that's how they practiced their faith back then, okay? So now we've got Jesus responding with this question, how do you read the law, or how do you understand it? The expert in the law says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. Is this a good answer? Yeah, that feels like a pretty good answer, right? Like, how do we practice our faith and inherit eternal life? And he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. The way that my mom says it, she says, love God with all your stuff, okay? All your stuff. Love God with everything you've got. And then love your neighbor as yourself, meaning that you love your neighbor to their own benefit or to their own gain. This feels good. How's Jesus gonna respond? Jesus says, yep, that's correct, okay? Really simple. He says, do this and you will live. And you know what I'm doing if I'm the expert in the law? I'm going, yes, all right, count one up, chalk it up for me. But he doesn't walk away, remember, because he's trying to test Jesus. So check out what the expert in the law says next. He says, but he wanted to justify himself. So he asks Jesus, and who is my neighbor? This is not the question to ask, right? Like, he is now trying to corner Jesus, and he asks a question on technicality. He says, well, Jesus, like, who is technically my neighbor? Like, are we talking like square footage here, like around me? Are we talking like the one right next door, but not the one 2 doors down? Like, who are we talking about here? And watch what Jesus does here. Jesus responds to this question with a story. It's brilliant. Here's the story that Jesus shares. He says, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. Pause. This story is already heightened here. Do you sense it? I mean, we've got a man who is on a journey, and he's going from Jerusalem to Jericho, which would have been well-known cities of the day, and he's attacked by robbers. Now, some context, because this doesn't mean a whole lot for us in central Pennsylvania in 2024, okay? But let me give some context of this moment. The journey from Jerusalem to Jericho would have been a hike. Now, if any of you are hikers in the room, I mean, this is a real hike, okay? This is a 17-mile journey. No cars, y'all. 17-mile journey, and a distance, there's a drop in elevation of 3,200 feet on this journey. This is a hike, isn't it? Like, so he's going from Jerusalem to Jericho. On this hike, there would have been all kinds of rocks and like nooks and caves and all kinds of stuff for people with malintent to hide, seeking solo travelers to take advantage of them. Hence our story. So we've got likely a Jewish man who is on his journey back from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he's attacked. And he's taken for everything that he has, and he's left for dead. Do you think this guy left on the side of the road is in good shape right now? Come on, do you think he's in good shape right now? No. This is not going well for this man in the story. So Jesus is telling his story. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. Yikes. So we have this setup, we have this story of a man desperately in need. Jesus continues. A priest. Oh, thank God! There's a priest coming! Like, if anybody's gonna help out, it's gonna be the religious leader, right? Like, that's gonna be the one to help. Like, this is the one who has to practice their faith by loving your neighbor as yourself. This is gonna be the one. So a priest happens along the way, and here's what happens. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side? What? Like, the priest comes up on this road, and he sees this man half dead. And rather than helping, the text doesn't say they just walked right by him. The text literally says he went to the other side of the road and walked right on by. Spoiler, this is not good, okay? This is not good. But like, I'm reading this, I'm a pastor, and I'm like, is Jesus throwing shade on pastors here? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, he probably had to have a good reason, right? Like, must have been a busy day. So I had to do a little digging. A lot of priests lived in Jericho at that time, and they would go perform religious duties once a week, every so often in Jerusalem. So this would have been a typical trip for the priest. Now, so he's going from Jerusalem to Jericho, so we know he's coming back. He's on his way home from work, all right? Now, according to the Old Testament law, that if a priest or any Jewish person touched something or someone that was dead, they would be considered ceremonially unclean for X amount of time, okay? But I'm like, his job's already done, so he could have helped, but maybe he was just tired. Maybe he had a long day. But the fact that he went to the other side of the road, that feels really weird, right? But here's what I discovered. They practiced this don't touch dead things so seriously that they said, even if our shadow touches something that's dead, that's a problem. So the priest was not justified. This was wrong for the priest, okay? So we continue reading. Jesus continues the story. He says, so too, a Levite. Oh, thank God. Like, I know you have no idea who a Levite is or why that would be important or why that would matter, but a Levite back then, they were the priest's assistant. Like, this is the one who took care of all the administrative responsibilities, right? And so maybe, like, if I'm the priest, it's like, oh, my assistant's coming. Like, my assistant will take care of it. Like, so this would have been two people that if anybody was going to help, it was going to be these two, right? So we got the assistant to the priest coming up, so too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him passed by on the other side. Levite does the exact same thing. The assistant walks up, sees the man half dead, and rather than helping, crosses over to the other side and leaves him there. This is not good. And Jesus does not end the story here because he could have just been throwing shade on the religious elite at the time, but that's not where the story ends. He shifts it. There's another character that comes along the scene. But say the word with me, Samaritan, full stop. As Jesus is telling the story, you gotta remember his audience here. This is a Jewish audience that he has, right? We got experts in the law, we've got religious leaders listening. When Jesus shifts the story and says, but a Samaritan, there would have been an audible, like gasp in this story. Why aren't you gasping? Like, why aren't you surprised by this? Let me tell you why. We don't understand the context of the day. Let me tell you the context. Jewish people, Samaritans, not simpatico. They did not like each other one bit. Samaritans were known back in the Old Testament as part of the Jewish community, but they were exiled by the Babylonians, and they end up intermarrying some Mesopotamians, right, who worship other gods, not Yahweh, the Lord God. And so all of a sudden, these faiths get mixed up. The Samaritans rewrite part of the 10 Commandments. They say, like, you're supposed to worship on this specific mountain and not on that one. Can you see why the Jewish people didn't like them? They totally rewrote how they were supposed to practice their faith. And so the Jewish people didn't like the Samaritans, and the Samaritans didn't like the Jews. Like, that's just how it went. Like, if you were Jewish and you'd walk through the city of Samaria, like, if you walked through there, you would likely be heckled. You would likely be called all kinds of names. It likely would have turned violent. And the same was certainly true if you were Samaritan walking through Jerusalem. Like, you try to walk through Jerusalem, you were going to get called names, you were going to get heckled, and it may even turn violent. This is a deep divided issue between two different racial people here. Like, two different groups here. There's a deep hatred and a deep divide. And the Jewish carpenter teacher named Jesus is telling a story where a Samaritan enters the scene. Now watch what happens with the Samaritan. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. But that's not where the story ends. Like, the Samaritan walks up and he's like, man, good vibes and prayers to you, brother. Like, I hope that goes well for you. Like, he doesn't stop there. What happens next? Let's keep reading. The Samaritan went to the man who was hurting and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey. Ding, 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 there it is, our donkey story. Brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day, he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any expense you may have. On his own dime, He takes the man, puts him on his own mode of transportation, and takes him to go get his wounds taken care of. Puts him up in a hotel, takes good care of him on his own dime. And then Jesus goes back to the question. Do you remember the question that spurred this story? Who technically is my neighbor? Watch what Jesus tells the expert in the law. He then asks this, hey, so which of these three do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? Shock comes over the expert in the law. The expert in the law replies, the one who had mercy on him. He didn't even have the courage to actually say the word Samaritan. Like, that's how much he despised the Samaritan. He's like, I guess it's the one who had mercy on him. And then Jesus, not in an arrogant way, not in a flashy way, not in a way that made that teacher of the law feel even lower than where he was, but Jesus looks at him and very quietly and very humbly looks at him and simply says, go and do likewise. Like, this is the crux of it, friend. Like, we as followers of Jesus, when you see someone in need, our responsibility is to meet the need if we are capable of meeting the need. It is this simple. Do you know what the only qualifier for this man's need to be met was? The qualifier wasn't his race. It was the Samaritan and a Jew who were partnered in this. Like, it was the Jewish man who was left for dead and the Samaritan that went out. It wasn't racial qualifier. It wasn't his background or his socioeconomic standing. It wasn't his workplace, if he was blue collar, white collar, no collar, or agrarian, I don't know. What was the qualifier? You know what the qualifier for the man to be served was? That he had a need. It's just that. And I think for us, friends, I think we can qualify who we want to serve and who we don't want to serve. Like, is this actually gonna be helpful? Are we actually gonna make sure that they're gonna get the care that they need? Do they think like me? Do they vote like me? Do they consider things like me? Like, well, how are they active in their lives? Like, friends, the qualifier is they have a need. And we as followers of Jesus are required to go and do likewise. Like, it is literally that simple. It is. And we can overcomplicate it by considering like, well, you don't know my life and how difficult my life is and how busy it is. Like, I get it. And you know who was thinking the same thing? The priest. The priest was the one saying the same thing. They didn't have time to do it. But who was the one that was celebrated in the story? The one who had mercy on the man in need. Friends, you look most like Jesus when you are meeting the needs of those around you. So who is the neighbor? The neighbor is the one who's right in front of you. Like, if you see a need and you have the capacity to meet the need, you meet it. Like, it is literally that simple. But if you're like me and you want to take notes, this is the main point that I drew out of this text, okay? True life is unlocked, not by holding on, but by giving it away. Because the expert in the law, first question was, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And part of that question assumed that he was loving his neighbor. And out of that question, it said, so who technically is my neighbor? The only way that you can find true life is by giving it away. You want to feel poured into? You want to feel joy and peace that comes by the fruit of the Holy Spirit? You know what we do? We give it away. Let's not overcomplicate these things, friends. It is that simple. So here's what I'm asking of you. I'm not asking you to go on a mission trip, okay? Although that would be great for some of you, all right? I'm not asking for you to go overseas. I'm not even asking you to cross the river unless you go like you have to. Like, I'm not asking you to do anything that's not out of your normal routine. But what I am saying is as you are living your life, if God awakens a need in front of you, you know what our obligation is as Christ followers? Meet the need. Let's meet the need. Jesus is our perfect example of this. Like, he convicts me in such a way. Like, here's what happens in John chapter 13. You can read this later on your own. John chapter 13. Jesus is probably like 36 to 24 hours away from giving his life on the cross. We know this is Thursday, that week of Holy Week, and Jesus is with his followers, his disciples, and they're celebrating a Jewish holiday together. And it was meant to be a celebration and a holy moment in a lot of ways. And so they were invited as guests into this home in Jerusalem, and as they walk in, it would have been typical custom back then that when you walked into a home, the host of that home would make sure that your feet were cleaned. They didn't have like boots like we do today, you know, like their feet were constantly dirty. And so they sit down at dinner and the host is not taking care of their feet. And so Jesus, like, you know, the disciples are kind of looking around and they're like, well, it's supposed to be Peter that's supposed to clean the feet, right? Well, no. Technically, John's the youngest, so it's supposed to be John, right? And like they were trying to figure out who was supposed to wash the feet. And in the midst of this kind of bickering, Jesus stands up, wraps a towel around his waist, bends down, and begins to wash his disciples' feet. Now, he's 24 hours away from giving his life. I don't know if I'm washing anybody's feet, let alone when I've got 24 hours left to live. Like, I'm probably doing what that like Tim McGraw song says, like live like you were dying, right? You know? 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu, I don't know. I ain't washing any dirty feet. That's not what I'm doing. But that's the way that our Jesus chose. Jesus says that I came not to be served, but to serve, and to give my life as a ransom for many. So he washes his disciples' feet. And then once he's done, he gets up and he looks at his disciples and he says these words. Just listen to him. John 13, he says this: by this, everyone will know that you are my disciples. If you, what is it? Love one another. They will know that you're a follower of Jesus, not because of where you stand, but because of where you serve. Like, that's how they will know you're with Jesus. That's how they will see you're with Jesus. It's by our active faith. So what is the need you can meet this week? Here's what I want to do. I want you to just take a second and take this in with childlike faith. And if there's a need in your life that you can meet this week, I want you to take a step and meet it. But if you're struggling creatively to like, I don't really know of many needs around me, like I live in a pretty good place, people are well off or whatever, like I don't really know what needs I can meet. We gave you some ideas. We're gonna give you some ideas. Is that okay? So here's what's about to happen. If you were around at Christmas time, we did something similar. We're gonna give you a blue card. And our ushers right now are preparing to get these blue cards ready, and they're gonna pass them down your row. Now here's the thing. There's all kinds of like potential serve things you could do on this. Here's the kicker. You take one of these and you open it, you gotta do it. All right, like there's no shame in you passing this along and being like, I got something else I could do. Like no shame in that game. Pass it along if that's not what you feel compelled or convicted to do. But if you're like me, I've got to break out of the rut from time to time, and I've got to pray and consider like, what could the Lord be inviting me to do this week? And so I grabbed one for myself. Ushers, you can go ahead and start passing those, please. Yes, please, thank you. Here's what mine is. If I can pull it out of my card. On the front here it says, hey, thanks for getting off your donkey. You're welcome. And then it says, give an encouraging note to a coworker who's struggling. Okay, I could totally do that this week. I could take a step and try to share some encouragement with someone that's close by me, someone that's a neighbor to me. And so, friend, I would encourage you to consider, could the Lord be inviting you to take a step of faith and to try to meet a need right around you in a really meaningful, practical way? And here's why, listen, friends, here's why this is good news for us. We are kind, listen, we are kind, why? Because God was kind to us. Like 1 John 4 says, we love, why? Because he first loved us. So this comes out of an abundance of the way that we have been loved, out of an abundance of the way the Lord has served us, out of an abundance of the way that he has been kind to us. And so friend, if you're feeling that pull or that tug, I'd encourage you to take that step this week. If you're online or maybe you're, like, I'm not sure I'm gonna take a card in the room today, go to livevibrant.com/blue card. You can sign up there and we'll hit you with one of those blue card challenges online if that's okay. Now remember, if you take one, you open it, you're in, right? Like, that's the gig, right? No shame in the game if you don't take one, okay? Nobody's gonna be like passing judgment or throwing stones at you on the way out, being like, where's your blue card? How dare you? Do you really love Jesus? No. We're all on different pathways and in different journeys, and that's okay. Like, no shame in that game. But I do want to say this. For many of you in the room, if this is the first time that you've heard about this Jesus, this good news of Jesus, this man who was fully God and fully man, that lived a perfect, sinless life and then chose to die for you and for me so that we could have life and life abundantly, but then 3 days later rose from the grave so that all who trust in the name of the Lord, you can have salvation, you can be saved. If this is the first time you're hearing this news and you want to take that next step of your faith, we would love to walk alongside of you. Maybe it's going all in with Jesus and being baptized. We've got a baptism, I think, coming up here pretty soon, but if that's you and you're online, go to livevibrant.com/Jesus, or if you're in the room and love to have that conversation, we've got a team right there in the back by the cross that would love to pray with you. Hey, we're still passing out those blue cards. Continue to do that, but I'm gonna go ahead and pray, and then we'll go donkey go. Does that sound good? All right, let's pray. Father, we are so thankful for the ways that you love us. We are so thankful for your goodness, your kindness, your grace, your mercy, for the ways that you continue to convict us, to help us look more like you. So as we take these silly blue cards, as we engage with a Serve Week opportunity, as we give, as we engage, Lord, I ask that others would see your son Jesus, like they would get to see your son Jesus, and that you would get all the glory and the honor and the praise that you are due. And Lord, we'll just trust you as we take this step and go donkey go. In Jesus' name. Are we all said together? Amen.